Hello there and welcome to the patch 7.1.5 Mistweaver Monk guide. In this video we'll cover the mysterious Mender of Wounds in all of its glory, covering everything you need to know to become a master healer in PvE combat. Designed for everyone, this guide will start with the fundamentals and then go into more detail as the video progresses. Make sure to enable annotations so that you can use the links on screen now to jump to the various sections of this guide at will. At the top of the screen, you'll find a link to jump you back to this table of contents for easy navigation. If you're a more advanced player and don't need to learn the basics, feel free to use the table of contents or the timestamps in the description to hop to the more advanced sections. If you'd like further reading and resources pertaining to the Mistweaver, you can find plenty of links in the description. Now, let's get started. Mistweavers are unique among those who heal. Wielding the power of life's essence, these monks use a mixture of preventative and restorative spells to mend their allies' wounds. Guided by an inner tranquility and wielding Shaylun, the staff that once wreathed Pandaria in a dense mist, the Mistweaver is both a jack-of-all-trades healer and a supportive damage dealer. They combine almost every aspect of gameplay, from steady heal-over-time spells to big burst healing to constant streams of mending to protective shields. The Mistweaver Monk can handle just about any situation that the World of Warcraft throws at them. Combining this with their strong utility spells and their damage-dealing capabilities through the art of so-called Fistweaving, a Master Mistweaver can provide both crucial healing support and additional damage, making their team stronger in just about every single way. The Mistweaver has access to a large variety of spells, but as a monk they are gifted with great mobility. Not only can they roll short distances near instantaneously, teleport to a predetermined location at will, but through their talent choices, they can augment their movement abilities even further. Repositioning as a Mistweaver is quick, clean, and easy. Almost every Mistweaver ability is fueled by mana, a slowly regenerating pool of power that will serve as their primary constraint in combat. As such, the Mistweaver must start by knowing how much mana each of their spells costs. They can then evaluate the situation they're in and pick the right tool for the job so that they can keep their allies alive without expending too much mana and leaving themselves and their friends without much needed healing in the future. This healing takes on many forms, and there are a wide variety of abilities available to the Mistweaver. So let's go over the ones you'll be using the most. If it has a mana cost, I will mention it here. We'll start with the Mistweaver's signature spell, Soothing Mist. This is a passive ability that is triggered after you cast most of your healing spells, and it simply channels a free beam of healing into the target, healing them for a decent amount over an extremely long period, about 5 minutes or so. The great thing about Soothing Mist is that it's free. It doesn't cost anything to channel, and it lets you heal almost constantly, even when not casting spells. Just be aware that moving or casting another spell will cancel Soothing Mist. Next is another important passive, Mastery Gust of Mists. This causes most of the Mistweaver's healing spells to trigger a small, instant heal when they land. This heal is increased based upon the Mistweaver's mastery statistic. Now, onto the Mistweaver's healing spells. Effuse. This is the Mistweaver's simple, single-target heal. It's got a short cast time, costs a small amount of mana, has no cooldown, and will trigger Soothing Mist. Enveloping Mist. Another single-target heal. This one heals the target for a large amount over a short period. During this time, all healing the Mistweaver does to the target is increased by a very large amount. It has a medium cast time and a large mana cost, and will trigger Soothing Mist. Vivify. A targeted heal like Effuse, this spell will heal both the target and a couple of nearby allies. It has a short cast time, a large mana cost, and will trigger Soothing Mist on its main target. Renewing Mist. This is an instant cast spell that costs a relatively small amount of mana. When used, it will heal the target over a long period, and, if its recipient is above maximum health, will instead jump to another nearby injured ally. Additionally, each time Renewing Mist heals, it has a small chance to increase the healing of your next Vivify by a large amount. This is the only random activation, or proc, that the Mistweaver has. Renewing Mist will not trigger Soothing Mist. Essence Font, the Mistweaver's large party healing spell. This brief channel fires bolts of healing at nearby allies, each one healing for a small amount, and then a smaller amount over time. The important thing about Essence Font, however, is its interaction with Mastery, Gust of Mists. During Essence Font's heal over time, the target will be affected by this Gust of Mist healing twice. This means that all healing you do to an ally affected by Essence Font will be increased substantially. However, Essence Font will not trigger Soothing Mist, and it costs a colossal amount of mana. Overusing Essence Font is how most Mistweavers are going to run out of mana. Detox. Every healer has the ability to dispel harmful effects, and the Mistweaver is no exception. When used, this instant ability will remove all harmful poison, magic, and disease effects from a friendly target. It has a fairly low mana cost and a short cooldown. Those are the Mistweaver's main healing spells. Now let's cover their cooldowns, powerful abilities with long recharge times. Thunder Focus T. This is a potent ability for the Mistweaver, and it interacts with 5 other spells. When used, it will simply empower the next Effuse, Enveloping Mist, Essence Font, Renewing Mist, or Vivify that the monk casts to have a bonus effect. Effuse will heal for a vastly increased amount. Enveloping Mist will be instant cast. Essence Font will be castable while moving. Renewing Mist will not trigger its cooldown. And Vivify will cost no mana. Thunder Focus T has no mana cost, is instant cast, and has a fairly short cooldown. You'll be using this one a lot. Life Cocoon. A single target save your life spell, Life Cocoon causes the Mistweaver to place the target within a shield of energy for a short time. This shield absorbs a hefty amount of damage and increases all healing over time the target receives while the shield holds. It has a long cooldown and costs a small amount of mana. It will also trigger Soothing Mist. Revival. Although this might not look very flashy when cast by yourself, this is a hugely powerful spell. When used, it heals all party and raid members in range for a big chunk, whilst simultaneously clearing all harmful magic, poison, and disease effects on them. This one can be an absolute lifesaver. It has a medium mana cost, a long cooldown, and will naturally not trigger Soothing Mist. Shayloon's Gift. The Mistweaver's artifact ability, this has both a passive and an active component. Passively, all of the Mistweaver's healing and damaging abilities have a chance to create a cloud of mist. This does nothing but fuel Shayloon's Gift, which draws in all clouds of mist to heal a single target per cloud drawn in. Shayloon's Gift has a hefty cast time, no mana cost, and no cooldown, although it cannot be cast without any clouds of mist available. It will also trigger Soothing Mist on its target. Those are the Mistweaver's cooldowns. Now let's talk utility and damage. Roll. If you've ever seen a monk, you've seen them roll. This sends them hurtling in the direction they are running, not the direction they're facing. It has 2 charges and a short cooldown. Although it isn't affected by the global cooldown, whilst rolling, the monk cannot cast any other abilities. Rising Sun Kick. This is a melee range ability that just deals a chunk of damage to a target. It has a small mana cost and a short cooldown. Blackout Kick. This is the Mistweaver's main tool for Fistweaving. It's a melee attack that deals a medium chunk of damage and has a small chance to reset the cooldown of Rising Sun Kick. Blackout Kick has a very short cooldown and no mana cost. Tiger Palm. An instant melee attack that costs nothing to use, this deals light damage and grants an application of Teachings of the Monastery, which is a buff that can stack up to 3 times. Blackout Kick will consume Teachings of the Monastery to strike 1 additional time per stack. This allows a Mistweaver to bank up to 3 stacks using Tiger Palm, then use a Blackout Kick to strike 4 times for a hefty chunk of damage and a high chance to reset Rising Sun Kick. Finally, Spinning Crane Kick. This simply deals a small amount of damage to all nearby enemies over a quick 1-ish second period. It has a small mana cost. Now, these aren't all of the abilities you'll be using as a Mistweaver Monk, but these are at the core of your toolkit, and they're the ones you're going to be using the most. As a Mistweaver, you have two ways of playing. You can stay at range and heal your allies like a typical healer, or you can get up close and personal with your foes, supporting your allies from melee range by both healing your team and kicking the snot out of your enemies, depending upon what the situation calls for. They're also remarkably mobile, by far the most mobile of all the healers. You'll need a wide knowledge base to play the Mistweaver effectively, and they, just like any other healer, have to consider their mana costs carefully, communicating not only with other healers, but with the rest of their team to keep them alive. Proper planning, communication, knowledge of your abilities, knowledge of the content you're doing, and a level head are the marks of a Master Mistweaver, turning them into a fantastic support class that can do just about anything their group needs them to. Now let's talk gear. To start off, all monks wear leather armor. Although you can equip cloth armor, you should never do this for use in combat, as its reduced armor will lower your survivability, and because of a passive you have, Armor Skills. This grants you a 5% increase to your primary stat if you're wearing entirely leather armor, and no piece of cloth armor can offer you that much of a bonus. Also important to note is that gear will change its stats depending upon who wears it. All primary pieces of gear, so helm, shoulders, cloak, chest piece, bracers, gloves, belt, leggings, and boots will change their primary stats dependent upon your specialization. So if a rogue were to wear your gear, they would gain agility, whereas you would gain intellect. Also important to note is that necklaces and rings no longer come with any primary stats other than stamina, opening up your pool of loot even more. When a piece of gear drops, it has a chance to be Warforged or Titan Forged, increasing its item level and statistics. This bonus can occur multiple times, meaning that you can get some extremely powerful pieces of loot from doing simple tasks. Remember though that the baseline item level of your gear and the chance it has to be Titan Forged to higher degrees will be greater if you're doing more challenging content, like mythic dungeons and raids. You also have access to legendary items, a surprisingly large pool of very powerful pieces of gear. You can have 1, later upgraded to 2 with your class Order Hall research, of these equipped at a time, and each one will change how you play slightly, but they're pretty rare. Keep an eye open for Leggings of the Black Flame, Ithus, Lunar Glides of Eramas, Cephus's Secret, Eye of Kalidus the Warp Watcher, and Velen's Future Sight, as these will change your playstyle somewhat. Take what you can with legendary items. Now, what stats are you after as a Mistweaver Monk? Well, you have access to 2 types, primary and secondary stats. Primary stats are found on just about every single piece of gear you equip, and secondary stats are a little bit more varied, but will also allow you to specialize and fine-tune yourself in various ways. Your primary stats are Intellect, which increases the power of your healing and damage spells, Stamina, which increases your maximum health, and Armor, which reduces the physical damage you take. Intellect is by far your best stat, so most, but not all, pieces of gear that offer increased intellect, often denoted by a higher item level, will be better for you. Secondary stats are where most of the customization occurs, and you'll want to use pieces of gear with secondary stats that work well with the Mistweaver's style. The secondary stats you have access to are Critical Strike, which increases the chance your healing spells will critically heal and your damaging abilities will critically hit. Haste, which increases your attack and spellcasting speed. Mastery, which as discussed earlier is Gust of Mists, which causes most of your healing spells to provide an additional burst of healing based upon your mastery. And Versatility, which simply increases the damage and healing you deal and decreases the damage that you take. For general healing across raids, dungeons, and world content, you'll want to prioritize Intellect, then Versatility, then Critical Strike, then Mastery, and finally, Haste. However, if you're a specialized healer that focuses on running Mythic Plus dungeons, where Burst Healing is the name of the game, then you'll want to prioritize Intellect, then Haste, then Mastery, then Critical Strike, and finally Versatility. Last up, if you're aiming for a Fistweaving specialization, which is pretty rare but not unheard of, where you focus on dealing damage and healing at the same time, then you'll want to prioritize Intellect, then Haste, then Critical Strike, then Versatility, and then Mastery. Just remember that these priorities are fairly loose. Most of the time, item level is going to serve you as a good indicator as to whether a piece of gear is better than what you're wearing. And only when you start getting into high gear levels, so 870 and above, would I suggest tweaking your gear to its maximum using secondary stats. Now, enchanting and gemming your gear has changed in Legion. You can apply enchantments to your rings, your cloak, and your necklace, but not to your artifact weapon. The powerful enchantments that used to apply to weapons are instead applied to your necklace. So, to fine-tune your monk to be as effective as possible, you'll want to grab Binding of Versatility for both of your rings, and Binding of Intellect for your cloak. For your necklace, pick up Mark of the Ancient Priestess, which grants your abilities a chance to heal a nearby ally. This will serve you well regardless of what build you use. Remember, if you're doing any kind of raiding, you should be fully enchanted. It's practically mandatory for most raiding guilds. Enchant gear that you'll be keeping for a while, and never enter a progression raid where you're seeing new content for the first time without enchantments. Gemming your gear remains much the same as it did in Warlords of Draenor. Gear has a chance to have a gem slot, and in these slots you'll want to use one Saber's Eye of Intellect. I say one because a Saber's Eye is a powerful gem, but you can only have one equipped in your gear at a time. For subsequent gem sockets, you'll want to use a versatile Maelstrom Sapphire for 150 versatility. This will work well regardless of what style or specialization you pick. Since so much gear is cross-specialization these days, gemming for versatility should work well for you regardless of whether you play Mistweaver or Brewmaster or Windwalker or all three. To optimize yourself for a raid, you're also going to need 4 consumables. Flasks, which offer a powerful buff that lasts for 1 hour and isn't removed by death. Potions, which grant a short-lasting but powerful bonus with a cooldown that resets upon leaving combat. Food, which grants an hour-long buff after eating for 10 seconds that unfortunately does fall off when you die, and Augment Runes, which grant you a small bonus that also falls off if you die. For your flask, use a Flask of the Whispered Pact. For your potions, use a Ley Torrent potion, which will allow you to regenerate a large portion of mana, which is very helpful mid-fight, and also consider picking up Potions of Deadly Grace to use before the fight begins for bonus damage. For your food, grab the good old seed-battered fish plate for bonus versatility, and make sure you stock up on Defiled Augment Runes. To actually gear up for raids once you reach level 110, you're going to want to do pretty much everything. Remember that every activity has a chance to drop good gear for you, so complete world quests, stay on top of your class order hall missions, enter level 110 normal, then heroic, mythic, and mythic plus dungeons if you're really looking to up your gear, hit up looking for raid every week, get yourself into normal and heroic runs of Emerald Nightmare and Trial of Valor, and hit up the Nighthold as soon as your gear permits. There are a lot of mechanics in play these days when it comes to gear, but just remember that anything you do will help you gear up. Before we move on, a quick note about 2 very powerful items you might want to get your hands on. The first is the Infernal Alchemist's Stone, which not only grants a lot of versatility, but increases the power of healing and mana potions. This is great for gearing up your Mistweaver, and can be used basically until you hit the Nighthold. Secondly is the Drape of Shame from Karazhan's Maiden of Virtue boss. This is a fantastic cloak that increases the strength of your critical heals, and will again be very useful until you replace it with late Nighthold gear. Now, you'll notice that I haven't mentioned artifact weapons yet. Don't worry, we'll be covering that next. Now let's cover the Mistweaver Monk's talents and their artifact, Sheilun, Staff of the Mists. Before we go over the staff responsible for the entirety of the Mists of Pandaria expansion, let's discuss how to swap talents. You can change specializations at any time as long as you're not in combat, but talents require you to be in a rest area, like a city, a tavern, or a class hall, or your mind to be calmed using a personal tome of the Tranquil Mind, or an area of effect from a codex of the Tranquil Mind. These are made by scribes and can be bought on the auction house. When used, they allow for talent swapping for 1 minute, not 1 tome per talent. Now for your talents. Rather than going into full detail about what each talent does, something that you can easily do on your own by opening up your talent panel, let's go over some builds that will help you deal with various situations. Remember, swapping talents is recommended, so don't stick with only one build when entering different kinds of content. The first build is the general raid healing build. It utilizes Chi Burst for free area of effect healing, Chi Torpedo for quick movement, Mist Wrap for strong tank healing and on-the-move soothing mist channeling, Leg Sweep for instant stuns, Dampen Harm for general damage reduction, Invoke Chi-Ji the Red Crane for an additional healing cooldown, and Mana Tea to help lessen the impact of burst healing on the Mistweaver's mana pool. Just note that you can pick whatever you'd prefer at the level 75 tier. They're all great survivability talents, so mix and match between on-demand healing, magic reduction, or general damage reduction as the fight demands. The second build is the Mythic Plus healing build. This one utilizes Zen Pulse for heavy tank healing on large trash packs, Tiger's Lust for movement speed on anyone you desire, Mist Wrap for constant healing whilst regularly moving, Leg Sweep for additional stuns, Diffuse Magic for the reduction in magic damage, although again you can pick any talent here based on your preference, Invoke Chi-Ji for additional healing support, and Focused Thunder for double the Thunder Focus Tea effect. However, you might want to consider swapping over to Mana Tea when you start going into higher Mythic Pluses, like 7 or above, as you're going to be draining a lot of mana to keep people alive. The last build is the good old Fistweaving build. This one is very similar to other builds with two main changes: Spirit of the Crane to allow extra blackout kicks to regenerate mana, and Rising Thunder to cause Rising Sun Kick to reset the cooldown of Thunder Focus Tea. Your throughput here will depend upon how often you can use Rising Sun Kick, which is also tied to how many extra blackout kicks you can get out, as each one offers a potential reset to Rising Sun Kick's cooldown. Just note that this build is going to consume a lot of mana, so be wary about that. The remainder of the build is actually fairly normal. Chi Burst for area of effect healing, Chi Torpedo for movement, Leg Sweep for stuns, anything you'd prefer in the 75 tier, mostly depending on what content you're doing, and Invoke Chi-Ji the Red Crane for healing support, which can be especially helpful when the damage isn't too high and you can focus on dealing some damage instead. These are just example builds. Remember that you will construct your own build depending upon what content you're doing. Keep your Tomes of the Tranquil Mind well stocked, and you'll be able to adjust to what content you're doing and be as effective as possible. Now for your artifact, Shaylun, Staff of the Mists. Once belonging to Emperor Xiaohao, the last Emperor of Pandaria, this staff is the tool with which he safeguarded the land with a dense cloud of mists. Shaylun acts as a sort of second talent tree, only much more permanent in how you distribute power. You'll be using this weapon for the entirety of the Legion expansion, upgrading and empowering it as you play the game. You'll obtain it through a quest chain that you receive as soon as you reach Dalaran at the start of the Broken Isles experience. Artifacts are unique to each specialization, and you can unlock different appearances by completing various achievements. They also feature hidden appearances and perks, so keep your eyes open for those. You'll be upgrading your artifact using Artifact Power, an experience bar for your weapon essentially. You'll gain artifact power by completing quests, looting treasures from exploration, completing dungeons and raids, finishing world quests, doing arenas, and, in essence, playing the game. You'll be given items that, when used, grant artifact power, and when your artifact weapon's experience bar reaches full, you'll be granted a trait point, and then the bar will reset. Trait points allow you to invest in the various perks available in your artifact tree, available by going to your class Hall Forge. Nearby will be an archivist that will allow you to queue up research notes, each taking a few days. When finished, these notes increase all artifact power rewards and scale up to 25 times. Keep on top of these and you'll soon find yourself generating tons of artifact power to pick up new traits. Alongside this, you have relics, items that you can receive much like artifact power. Relics will grant an increase to the artifact weapon's item level and statistics, and grant points in various artifact traits for free. These bonus points can cause a trait to go beyond their original limits, and even allow for a trait that has only one rank to increase in strength. Relics, however, do have limitations. Each relic has a type, like Fel, Fire, Shadow, Life, Frost, Storm, Arcane, and artifact weapons have a limited amount of slots for each type of relic. For instance, Shaylun has 2, later upgraded to 3 when you finish your Order Hall campaign, relic slots. 1 Frost, 1 Life, and 1 Storm. You cannot implant relics into your weapon that do not correspond to its slots, and replacing a relic with another will destroy the relic originally placed in the weapon. Now, it's somewhat difficult for me to tell you what relics to aim for, as there are no amazing go for this over item level kind of relics, so just remember that a higher item level for your weapon is always a good thing, and is going to be better than increasing one of your minor perks. Now, traits take a long time to unlock, and you'll spend the entire expansion leveling up your weapon and pouring points into its various traits. There's even a bonus trait available once you've unlocked all of the others that grants a small bonus that can be upgraded almost indefinitely. Traits are split into ordinary traits, which offer small bonuses, and golden traits, which offer potentially game-changing power. To reach a trait, you must first unlock all ranks of a trait connected to it, meaning that what order you pour artifact power into your weapon is important. So, let's discuss the best way for you to invest your power. You'll start with Shayloon's gift, which you'll get for free as soon as you obtain your artifact. After that, open up the tree with Mists of Wisdom. Head right into Essence of the Mists, then into Spirit Tether. Loop up into Way of the Mistweaver, then grab your first golden trait, the Mists of Shayloon. This gives your healing spells a chance to increase your healing over time by a nice chunk for a short time. After that period ends, you'll heal all nearby allies. After that, loop back around into Mists of Life. Once you pick that up, turn around again and head into Extended Healing, then head down into Infusion of Life, then Shroud of Mist. Pick up Dancing Mists, then go all the way back to the other side of the tree, pick up Protection of Xiao Hao, and then your second golden trait, Blessings of Yulon. This causes Revival to also apply a nice heal over time effect. Immediately after that, go all the way back across the tree and head into Coalescing Mists, and then into your final golden trait, Celestial Breath. This makes Thunder Focus Tea also heal allies in a cone in front of you. To finish the tree off, pick up Soothing Remedies, then finish with Light on your feet. This will unlock your final trait, Mistweaving. This will allow you to pour huge amounts of artifact power into your weapon to increase your healing by small increments. This is the kind of build you want to go for. Remember, this is only an example build for raiding. If you have different needs depending upon your goals, feel free to build however you'd like. Just remember that this is a long-term project that will take you weeks, if not months, and refunding artifact power will set you back, so be careful about your choices here. Alright, now let's discuss your rotation and your cooldowns. This immediately presents something of a problem. Healers don't really have rotations. What spells you use and in what order you use them depend on so many different factors. What content you're doing, how much damage is coming out, how many people are being damaged, who you're working with, what the encounter itself is doing to your team. So let's try and break this down into something a little more easy to understand. We'll create a system to break down and categorize the situations you'll find yourself in. Green, amber, and red. These pertain to the dangers of various situations. A green situation is where very little is going on. Damage might be coming out, but it's slow or inconsequential, and no one is in danger. Your only objective during green situations is to casually top people's health up at a fairly steady rate without spending that much mana. An amber situation is where the damage is starting to pile on, and your team is going to need you to sustain them. Whereas a green situation doesn't require healing immediately, an amber situation does, and you'll have to find a balance of spending and preserving mana to keep people alive and prevent yourself from becoming overwhelmed. A red situation is an emergency. Perhaps someone stands in something bad and their health spikes down to a terrifyingly low amount. Perhaps a huge wave of raid damage comes in, or your party is taking damage from a nasty mechanic in a Mythic Plus dungeon. This is a red situation, where you have to either use powerful cooldowns to keep the team alive, drop a ton of mana to save your party, or simply triage heal and allow some players to die. We'll combine this green, amber, red system with various types of healing: single target, party healing, blanket raid healing, and downtime, to give you an idea of how to use your spells effectively. Alright, so let's start with single target healing in a green situation, where you're either supporting a tank who's taking light damage, or you're topping a player up who just got hit by something minor. Your first priority here is to keep Renewing Mist on cooldown. Since it's a smart heal, it will basically help you do your job, and using it on cooldown will help you get multiple instances of it out and ticking on your allies. This will also help you gain Uplifting Trance, which is the small chance for Renewing Mist to increase the healing of your next Vivify. After you've done that, If your target is surrounded by enemies and you've taken the talent, use Zen Pulse for a nice burst of healing. Finally, simply use Effuse once to trigger Soothing Mist, and then top your target up without wasting any mana. As we move into a single target amber situation where a tank may be taking constant damage, or a player has taken aggro from a few enemies and they're being whittled down quickly, your first priority is to stabilize the situation. Use Enveloping Mist on whoever's in danger to activate the bonus healing and give them a nice big heal. After that, if they're still in danger, use Shayloon's Gift at 5 or more mists active, utilizing the Soothing Mists from the spell to help top them up. If they're still taking damage, use Zen Pulse if you've talented into it. If Uplifting Trance is activated, which increases the healing of your next Vivify, then use a quick Vivify. If you don't have Uplifting Trance active, then simply use Effuse to maintain your target's health until either they're safe and the situation is green, or Enveloping Mists falls off. Once things are safe, throw out Renewing Mists and return to your green priority. In a single target situation, generally you're going to be able to tell the difference between an amber and a green situation when your Soothing Mist healing will out-heal whatever damage someone is taking. Now, a single target red situation is very dangerous, particularly in Mythic Plus runs. Perhaps the tank is getting flattened by a huge wave of enemies or an angry boss, or someone accidentally takes aggro and they lose most of their health in a big hit. Either way, you have to act very, very quickly or someone's gonna die. In this situation, your first priority is to buy yourself time. Life Cocoon your target. The bonus healing is helpful, but you really want to do this for that big shield on them to prolong their life. After that, chug a Mana Tea if you've talented into it, and a Thunder Focus Tea. Cast an instant Enveloping Mist on your target, then Shayloon's Gift if you have 5 or more mists ready to go. During the 6-second period of the increased healing from Enveloping Mist, try to get the target's health up to a comfortable amount. Spam Vivify on them, since it heals for more than a Effuse even on a single target, until your target is stable. After that, feel free to just top them off with Zen Pulse, Soothing Mist, and then transition back into spreading Renewing Mist on cooldown. Let's transition over to party healing now, basically 5-man content. A green party healing situation is where multiple members of the team are taking light damage, and it's your job to keep them topped up without wasting your mana. Assuming that you won't need it for future damage, chug a Thunder Focus Tea and spread Renewing Mist to everyone who's injured. Keep Renewing Mist on cooldown as always. After that, if you've got Uplifting Trance active, throw a Vivify out on the most injured party member. If there's still damage coming in, you'll be using Effuse and Soothing Mist to top players up. Moving on to an amber party healing situation. Multiple players are taking damage and it's threatening to overwhelm the group if you don't stay on top of it. Start with a single Essence Font. Not only does this heal the group, but it will allow your Gust of Mist's mastery to apply twice. Hit Chi Burst so that it strikes your enemies and your allies if you've talented into it. Chug a Thunder Focus Tea and spend its charges on free Vivifies. After that, simply Vivify until the danger has passed and the situation has transitioned to something else. If your party is safe, start spreading Renewing Mist again. Now for the dangerous situation. A red party healing situation can become devastating quickly, so you have to get things under control. Start with a Revival to try and stabilize and buy yourself some time, then invoke Chi-Ji the Red Crane if you've talented into it, Mana Tea as well if you've picked that talent up. After that, it's time to spend some mana. Hit Refreshing Jade Wind if you've talented into it and maintain it until the danger has passed. Hit Essence Font once to get the heals rolling, Chi Burst afterwards if talented into it, chug your Thunder Focus Tea and start spamming Vivify until the danger has passed. Once it has, slow down and return to Renewing Mist spreading and keeping the party topped up. Don't overreact here or you're going to lose most of your mana. Now let's transition over to Blanket Raid Healing, where you unfortunately don't get a blanket, but you have a large group of players to look after, and you're going to be aided by other healers. We'll start with Green Blanket Raid Healing. As the raid takes inconsequential damage, keep them topped up by chugging your Thunder Focus Tea and spreading Renewing Mist. Try to keep one instance of it active on the tanks, who will most likely be taking consistent damage, and keep the spell on cooldown. Vivify as multiple players take damage, but be careful not to overspend your mana. If you're concerned about this, slow down and use Effuse instead. Moving to an Amber Blanket Raid healing situation, you want to start by hitting up Refreshing Jade Wind if you've talented into it. Maintain it until things are under control or you're concerned about your mana. Use Essence Font once or twice. This will get the heal effect rolling on lots of players, but just remember that it has a 25-yard range, so be sure to be near your intended targets. I say once or twice, really depending upon the size of your raid. If you're just in a 10-man raid, once is normally fine, but 2 in any kind of other raid is probably what you want to go for. After that, hit Chi Burst if you're talented into it. Then it's time for the Thunder Focus Tea Vivify combo for free healing. To try and top your raid off, keep using Vivify. Then, once the danger has passed, slow down, use Soothing Mist, and keep Renewing Mist on cooldown. Now the big scary one. Red Blanket Raid healing situations. Everyone is in danger, or at least a large chunk of the raid is low on health. The important thing to remember here is not to panic. You have other healers working with you, and chances are, if you've planned ahead, you'll be prepared for these situations. A healing cooldown is almost always going to be assigned to these points, so consider whether or not it's your turn. If it is, the cooldown you'll want to use immediately is Revival, followed up by Invoke Chi-Ji, the Red Crane, if you've got it talented and you need to use it. Once you've thrown your cooldowns out there and the raid is still in emergency mode, head into your Amber rotation. Chug your Mana Tea, if talented, Essence Font a couple of times, Thunder Focus Tea, and cast Vivify repeatedly until the danger has passed. The only difference here between this red and amber situation is that you'll likely be doing this for a longer period to stabilize the raid. You should only have to drop loads of mana on Vivify if the situation is truly desperate, if you have no cooldowns left, if all of the other healers have no cooldowns left, and the raid is on the verge of wiping. In these situations, you can only hold out for so long, so hopefully the boss is extremely low health as well. Finally, let's talk about your downtime. There are no green, amber, red categories for this, since during this period practically no one is taking damage, and you have a little bit of time to kill. During this downtime, it's time to Fistweave. Whether or not you're talented into a Fistweaving style, taking this time to deal some damage is a great idea. Here's your rotation, assuming you haven't picked up Rising Thunder or Spirit of the Crane. Tiger Palm your way to 3 stacks of Teachings of the Monastery, use Blackout Kick, and then simply repeat. If you have picked up Rising Thunder and Spirit of the Crane, then your rotation is almost the same, save for one new number 1 priority, Rising Sun Kick. You want to use this not only for damage, but to reset Thunder Focus Tea, so you'll be using it both as you heal and as you deal damage, so your rotation's going to look something like this. Thunder Focus Tea, a spell empowered by said Thunder Focus Tea, Rising Sun Kick, Thunder Focus Tea, a spell empowered by Thunder Focus Tea, Tiger Palm, Tiger Palm, Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, and, if Rising Sun Kick was reset, Thunder Focus Tea. If not, repeat the Tiger Palm Blackout Kick combination unless you can wait a couple of seconds for Rising Sun Kick to come off of its short cooldown. If you can, just wait, Rising Sun Kick, Thunder Focus Tea, a spell empowered by Thunder Focus Tea. If you can't wait, Blackout Kick and hope for a reset. If you're up against 4 or more enemies and you're not looking to reset Thunder Focus Tea with Rising Sun Kick, simply use Spinning Crane Kick constantly to help deal damage. Just remember, it does cost mana, so don't overuse it. Regardless of your Fistweaving style, there are going to be times where you aren't in range, either because of mechanics or because of misfortune. Either way, if you can't get in range before you have to heal again, and there's a very light amount of damage coming in, you can feel free to just channel Soothing Mist on the current tank. If even this isn't happening, if say the boss is just not doing anything, hit Crackling Jade Lightning for some free ranged damage. Now, a quick mention of your cooldowns. Let's go into a little bit more detail about how they work. Life Cocoon is your single target save a life spell, and you'll likely be using it on the tanks, potentially even putting it on a list of cooldowns that they're going to call out for. But if you're not in this situation, it's also a great means to save other lives. Regardless of who you cast it on though, remember that by itself it's just going to buy you time, since it's not as powerful as it once was. To counteract this, spend a little bit of time healing your target up. Your Mists of Life artifact trait will help with this significantly, since it will apply both Renewing Mist and Enveloping Mist to its target. Revival is a beautiful spell to watch. However, one important note is that it also dispels everyone in range, so remember not to accidentally blow anyone up with it by dispelling a potentially explosive debuff in the middle of the team. Additionally, since it has a 40-yard range, it is possible to be outranged by some players, so consider your positioning carefully. Invoke Chi-Ji is a nice simple spell, but one thing I like to use it for is Fistweaving, especially in Mythic Plus content. If the damage isn't too high, I like to simply throw Chi-Ji out and focus on Fistweaving a little to deal with, say, a nasty pack of enemies, or help get a boss down just a little bit faster. It's especially helpful just after the pull when the damage starts coming in. A quick tip for Thunder Focus Tea, use it all the time. Unless you absolutely need to react to a burst of damage in Mythic Plus, you should use it practically on cooldown for the great bonuses it offers, if only for the Renewing Mist cooldown alone. Now, before we end this section, a few quick-fire tips. Chi Burst isn't useful for single target healing, but it's great for AoE, and doubly great in Mythic Plus for trash packs. Just don't pull extra groups with it. Mistwalk, if you've taken it, is a beautiful mobility spell, but the healing alone isn't going to save anyone, so its primary function is to get to places quickly. Or, for fun. Tiger's Lust is not only a movement speed increase, but a root and snare dispel as well. You can use it to remove slows from, say, the globs and the crabs in the Eye of Ishara. This is just an example, and there are loads of situations where Tiger's Lust is very helpful. Finally, Sheilun's Gift has the potential to be a really big heal, but only if you gather 12, which is the maximum, stacks of mists beforehand. You're also going to need to preempt a burst of damage with it, since its long cast time could result in a dead player and you doing nothing as you try and cast a big heal, as opposed to using something like an instant enveloping mist to save their life. Alright, before we move on, let's do something a little different. Rather than me reading from a pre-prepared script, I'm going to do a little bit of live commentary of a heroic scenarios kill that the guild recently took down. Just a little bit of an off night, it's nothing too serious, the mechanics are kind of all over the place, but this is also, I feel, pretty representative of what an average healing situation is going to look like, especially if you're not in a dedicated guild. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the footage and I'm going to commentate over it and give you an idea of my thought process behind almost every single one of my actions. As the pull timer begins, a nice 15 seconds, I will focus on getting Renewing Mist out. You'll notice that some of my bars are glowing. That's because I have the legendary leggings that grant a random Thunder Focus Tea effect. I already used Thunder Focus Tea to get the bonus Renewing Mist out there. Also important to note, this is going to be a quick kill because we're pretty over-geared. This is just an alt run. So the pull begins, I move in and start Fistweaving, preparing for the burst of damage that's going to come out when he uses Aura of Dread Thorns, because their damage is going to be reflected and we're going to power through it. Everyone's using their cooldowns. So I preempt with an Essence Font by rolling to the range to get some of that out, and then I immediately start using Vivify. I use Invoke Chi-Ji, a Chi Burst, and I just hit the Mana Tea and start using Vivify at this point. Now, I did use the Mana Tea a little bit late there, my bad. Should have cast that earlier, but we're here to learn. So, now that the raid damage is kind of a little bit more under control, I also used the Life Cocoon there on Hobo Mojo, who is a very high DPS, to make sure that he didn't kill himself. A little bit of red single target healing there. I used Detox to help clear these roots that are going around, and at this point the damage starts to spike one more time, so I use Revival, not the most well-timed Revival, but it does kind of help get through that burst of damage. I roll into the patch of green to get rid of my stacks. I use another Essence Font and then start Vivifying again to just try and keep the raid alive. Hobo Mojo takes some more damage, so I throw a Renewing Mist specifically on him, use another Essence Font, and again start going into the Vivify. So I've thrown away almost all of my mana at this point, and Scenarios has hit his second phase. All of the raid damage at this point is going to stop. We're pretty much done. That's why I threw all of my mana away. At this point, my goal is to do some fist weaving. So since I don't have the talents, I'm just going Tiger Palm, Tiger Palm, Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick. I don't want to use Rising Sun Kick, although as you see I use it right here, mostly due to Instinct, and I do waste a little bit of mana. I use another Chi Burst here to keep everyone topped up. And at this point, everything is pretty much under control, so I'm just going to throw a Soothing Mist out on a few people. You notice I used Tiger's Palm on one of the main tanks there to help her move out of the Spear of Nightmare pool. And then at this point, I'm just throwing out a last few pieces of Vivify just to keep on top of the stacks. And then the boss dies. That's generally how you want to do it. You notice I didn't run out of mana too badly until kind of the end there. I slowed down as soon as I knew the raid damage was going to stop. So that's the kind of thing you're going to want to do. Make sure you preempt and think about the fight you're going to be taking part in so that you can make decisions like this. Now that we've had a live example, let's move on. Up next, macros and add-ons. You don't necessarily need these to master your monk, but they're going to aid you a great deal, so they come highly recommended. First, your macros. Now, there are no macros for specifically the Mistweaver that I would suggest, but there are a bunch that I would recommend for any healer, and these are known as MOUSEOVER macros. These macros let you use your spells on targets that your mouse is hovering over, rather than having to click on your target every time. This is a great way to heal speedily, as your pace is determined by how fast you can move your mouse over a target, not how fast you can mouse over a target, click on them, and then press the spell, or press the spell, mouse over them, and then click on them. It just makes it go faster. I'll give you an example on screen now of a MOUSEOVER macro for Effuse. Let's break it down. The # show tooltip command asks the game to display both the icon and the tooltip of the spell when you mouse over the icon in your bars, so you can keep your bars nice and tidy. The next line is what makes the macro function. The /cast command tells the game to cast a spell. Then, within the brackets, there's a trio of definitions for the game to consider. First, the @mouseover command tells the game to cast the spell at the frame that your mouse is hovering over. So if it's hovering over an enemy in the game world, or more importantly, over the health bar of an ally, it will cast the spell at them, if it can. This is where the help definition comes in. This tells the game to only cast the spell if the mouse over target is friendly, so that you don't accidentally heal yourself if you're mousing over an enemy. Finally, the nodead function tells the game not to cast the spell if the mouse over target is dead. This will prevent the game from highlighting your mouse and requiring that you hit either escape or click away to cancel the spell targeting process, which can slow you down. After the close bracket, the name of the spell tells the game what spell to cast. Nice and simple. Remember, you don't want to use parentheses, which are often misattributed as brackets. Brackets are to the right of your P key, accessible without any modifiers like Control or Shift. Spells that I'd recommend using in MOUSEOVER macros are Effuse, Renewing Mist, Enveloping Mist, Vivify, Shayloon's Gift, Tiger's Lust, Life Cocoon, Detox, Zen Pulse, Mist Walk, and Resuscitate. Again, these aren't 100% necessary. If you're more comfortable doing it in your own way, that's fine. This is just what I prefer to do. Now for your add-ons. As I say in all of my class guides, get Weak Auras. It is a fantastic, if somewhat complex add-on that will improve your performance if you use it correctly. It can display all kinds of great information for you. The only downside is its immense depth. Rather than going into all of that depth now, which would take a very long time, I'll leave that for a separate guide. You can watch that guide by clicking the link on screen now, or in the description. Healer-specific add-ons for raid frames really depend on taste. I personally use the default raid frames, but good alternatives are Voodoo, Healbot, and Grid, with my recommendation going to Voodoo for its customizability. You may also want to grab an add-on like Angry Assignments to help communicate healing cooldowns with fellow healers in raids. Other add-ons I would suggest for a clean and effective user interface are Quartz for a nice solid cast bar add-on with plenty of flexibility, Bartender for great customization of the action bars, Shadowed Unit Frames for, you guessed it, unit frames, and Tidy Plates for a different take on the nameplates above player and NPC heads. Let's finish off the guide with some tips and tricks for mastering your Mistweaver, in no particular order. First up, you need to understand your abilities and all of their interactions. Get used to how roll feels, how you bounce off of rocks and slopes, and generally how it moves you. Get a feel for how far Chi Burst will fly before it disappears, so you know when to fire it off and when not to because you're going to pull extra enemies. And more importantly, figure out exactly how strong your various spells are. This will depend upon your gear and who you're healing, so double check every tooltip and remember the little quirks, like that your mastery applies twice to targets affected by Essence Font. This extends to your user interface as well. If you're uncomfortable with the locations of your health bars, cast bar, and cooldown information, then you're going to struggle. Take the time to construct a user interface that you are comfortable with. Simple is often better with as few moving parts as possible. Whatever you like, whatever works for you, as long as you're comfortable with it, that's fine. You're the only one that has to use it. This goes even further, extending to what fights you'll be getting into as well. You have to understand nearly every single mechanic, and you'll have to be ready to react to it. Is a burst of damage coming up? What will you do to preempt it? How can you mitigate the damage you take so that you can focus on healing others? Will you start casting Essence Font, Vivify, or prepare to smash your revival button? Will another healer handle it? How can you aid them without stepping on their toes? Overlapping cooldowns is often a huge waste, unless the damage is incredibly high, so keep this in mind. Communication is linked to this. You need to be able to communicate with your other healers. Let them know ahead of time that you intend to use revival to counteract a burst of damage, as long as doing so doesn't mess up a pre-planned cooldown rotation. A good idea here is to create a healing channel for your healers to communicate out of the raid chat, to figure out healing issues without clogging up the rest of the raid's chat. It's also a good way to make friends with the other healers. Healing together is all about trusting that you'll be picking up each other's slack. Now, a big aspect of mana management is overhealing, or healing a player who's at maximum health. A lot of players like to overheal, and while this is a fine practice while you're at maximum mana, and in most situations it's not going to be a bad idea, it's a habit that can bite you in the behind when things get hectic. I would argue that you want to get into the habit of never overhealing, so that when the time comes and you need to preserve your mana, you aren't instinctively healing people who don't need it. This is less of an issue for Mistweavers since Soothing Mist is free, but just remember not to overuse Essence Font. It'll drain your mana so very quickly. Remember the golden rule: don't panic. Panicking will get your team killed. Yes, it's hilarious when a healer panics and splutters a stream of distressed slurs over voice chat, but doing this, even internally, in a raid will get people killed. Keeping a level head, knowing that damage is inevitable, and knowing when it will come in will help you pick the right tool for the job, even while others may be panicking. You have a wider view of the fight, so make sure you never overreact to damage by dropping a bunch of mana when you know you didn't need to. Keep calm and keep healing. I'm now going to directly quote Icy Veins' healing guide, to which you can find a link in the description. Tanks and DPS players do, sometimes, have to make split-second decisions, and these decisions can sometimes impact the outcome of the encounter. Healers, on the other hand, have to make this kind of decision every time that they use a spell. These decisions will come to fruition when your mana depletes. Ideally, your mana will run out as the boss dies. In cases like this, you've spent just enough mana on powerful spells to keep players alive, and you haven't under or overspent mana on either not enough or too much healing. Additionally, these decisions will be readily apparent during absolute emergencies, where you are likely going to have to triage heal. Now, triage healing is the act of deciding who's going to die and who's going to live, in order for you to actually kill a boss. This only really applies when both the boss and the raid are extremely low, but Blizzard does have a little habit of making boss fights extremely intense during the final phases, so this is not as uncommon as you might believe. At times like these, you need to create a priority list. It'll probably look something like this. The tanks, if possible, need to be healed first. Without them, unless the boss is literally about to die, your attempt is over. Up next, try to keep the execute damage dealers like warriors and surrender to madness shadow priests alive. These classes are going to do the most damage to a boss when they're low on health, which can be the difference between a wipe and a victory. After that, heal the range damage dealers, for the simple fact that the boss has to run farther to reach them and kill them. After that, the melee damage dealers, they're just going to help end the fight. And lastly, the healers. Sorry, but you're last here. In a situation like this, no amount of healing will stabilize the attempt. It doesn't matter what you do, chances are you've already used all of your tools and you're just trying to hold on. Throw the last dregs of your healing at damage dealers and let them finish the fight. If they all die, you'll be left healing no one but yourself, and you can't kill the boss. If you let everyone else die, the boss will just step on you and the attempt will be over. This naturally all depends on your damage dealer's skills. If you have an incredible damage dealer who does tons more damage than anyone else, they're probably going to take priority. But in most progression attempts, players are going to be pretty even, so try to define by role first and then by skill. Yes, it sucks that you have to put yourself last on this priority list, but your decisions will indirectly result in a boss kill in situations like these, so congratulate yourself for that. Next up, Know your tanks. Each tank class will take damage in different ways, thanks to their different forms of active mitigation. This is something of a generalization, and the actuality of how a tank takes damage will depend upon their gear, their skill, and what content you're doing. But in general, druids, warriors, and paladins will tend to take fairly smooth damage. Monks will take extra damage over extended periods of time thanks to stagger, and demon hunters and death knights will take damage in bursts but are also going to compete with you for healing. Next up, a simpler but still important tip. Make the most of your health and mana potions. They're not hugely expensive, and having a large chunk of your mana restored over a short channel time is extremely helpful. All you need to do is locate a section of encounter where there's not too much damage going out, a green situation if you went over the rotation section, and your mana is low enough that you need to use a potion. By taking the time to channel this potion, you can heal harder throughout the rest of the fight, replacing Effuses with Vivifies and spending more time healing. This is something you should get into the habit of doing, especially on progression attempts. Similarly, using health potions and encouraging other teammates to do the same will help you significantly, especially on tough content. Simply telling everyone to drink a health potion at the same time is equivalent to a small cooldown, and that can really be helpful. Now, as you go into various types of content, make sure you mix and match your talents. Fistweaving can work well on content that you've got on farm, but it's generally going to be difficult to pull off in harder progression fights, especially considering how much mana it consumes. So consider sticking to more of a healing role until you're in better gear and you've got the fight down. For Mythic Plus, consider using Zen Pulse, Tiger's Lust, and even the new Ring of Peace to help your tank kite enemies. Fistweaving can also work well on some of the lower Mythic Pluses depending upon your gear. One last ability-specific tip. Transcendence is awesome. I haven't mentioned it in this guide yet, but I want to highlight it here. Transcendence will punish you for using it randomly and reward you so heavily for planning ahead. Place it in an area where you know you'll need to move, like on the stairs on the Helya fight, and then teleport over there as soon as you need to. Use it to kite enemies, to get to a location early and start healing, and just generally use it as much as you can to get used to it. Make sure you relocate your spirit once you've teleported so that you don't accidentally teleport to where you swap your spirit to, not where you originally placed it. Now, before we end, let me quickly touch on your goal as a Mistweaver. Your role may be a healer, and most of what you do may be healing, but your primary goal is to be a support character. You support your team in a variety of ways. Yes, you do so by healing them, but you can also support them by helping them deal damage, by taunting a dangerous enemy briefly, by paralyzing or stunning as part of a rotation of crowd control, or by simply knowing and executing mechanics well. No matter your class, no matter your role, a kind, supportive mindset, constantly wanting to improve, and an understanding perspective of others will get you a long way in World of Warcraft. Remember that, and you'll excel. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like further information regarding the Mistweaver, then you can find a variety of helpful links in the description. From the Icy Veins and Wowhead guides, to the Monk Discord, which is a great place to talk to skilled players, as long as you're polite. You can also find Geodude's Mistweaver stat weights, which will allow super advanced players to calculate what stat priorities to shoot for, and FatbossTV's Nighthold boss guides, to help you understand boss mechanics, which again is very important for a healer. Finally, a healing guide by Icy Veins will further explain the concepts and mentality of healing. Naturally, if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, or suggestions, you can contact me using the links in the description, or you can just leave a comment. If you want to help support the channel, there's a link to my Patreon page in the description as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I wish you the best of luck as the Mistweaver Monk.